Hello, and welcome to Jersey Matters. I'm Larry Mendte. On this week's show, we'll talk with New Jersey Senate President Steve Sweeney, who says there's going to have to be major budget cuts to keep the state running for the rest of the summer. The stock market set records and then fell. What's an investor to do in these uncertain times? We'll talk with market expert Thomas Hayes. We'll also get a first-person perspective on what it's like to be a black police officer in today's world. And the community comes together to help three brothers in Edison who were on the brink of losing everything after a family tragedy. And now my interview with New Jersey Senate President Steve Sweeney, who says there's going to be major budget cuts this summer. I think it's fair to say that New Jersey right now is facing an economic crisis, and one that you don't have a lot of time to at least fix in the short term. You have to deal with a budget from now until September by next week. I'm sure you've looked at the numbers. How bad are things right now?
That's horrible. Larry, the state's never seen anything like this. And the problem is, we were in a bad place to start with financially. We were probably least prepared to deal with anything like this. And unfortunately, we're going to be looking at a lot of cuts. We're going to have to cut, and programs aren't going to get funded, and we're going to have to borrow money also. And it's going to be more than 1 year, Larry. This is going to be a multiple year problem, and it's not going to be a small problem. We're talking billions, multiple years.
I know that you were reluctant to borrow money, and you seem to soften on that position. Is that going to be necessary?
Well, I've never not thought we had to borrow money. Number one, it's just how we borrow it, knowing how much we're going to borrow, Larry. You know what I mean? Because the bills that were being produced didn't have a total on it. And just making sure the right protections and transparency are in place so as we borrow, people know what we're doing. So we're getting closer. We don't have an agreement yet with the administration. But, the administration had said, oh, we got to get first in line. The money's going to run out. It's not going to be there. And that's not true. There was so much money reserved per state to borrow. The state right now, New Jersey's talking about borrowing $5 billion of general obligation bonds, but they're also talking about borrowing over $9 billion of federal funds. So, again, Larry, and there was issues where the towns and the counties told us, hey, listen, we don't want you to borrow for us because we have a better credit rating you do. When we go to borrow, we're gonna get downgrades. It's not going to be one, it's going to be a few downgrades. We're going to wind up the second state in the country with a B bonding rate, in the Bs, and that's not something to be proud of.
Are you going to allow municipalities to borrow their own money? I know that has to be done legislatively, right?
We're looking at it. There's a bill to look at. We also want to know what towns are going to do. Obviously, it can't be back to normal business. We're just going to borrow to function as it's always been. The world's changed, and we're going to have to change somewhat with it. So, with bonding authorization, we're going to look at what kind of strings possibly we would attach in order to allow them to borrow.
Where will the cuts be? How deep will they be?
Well, this is just the first round, Larry. This is just the first round. So right now we're over $1 billion in defunding. That's what we're calling it, defunding programs. They're going to be dramatic. They're going to be hard. There's going to be pain, and we're not done with it. We're not done. Other states are doing 20% across the board, 15% across the board, every department. So right now we're defunding some things that the governor's identified, but we're not done, is my point. The September budget's going to be a real important one. That 9-month budget's going to be very, very important.
And are you already looking at that?
As soon as we get done this one, we're not done this one yet. I know we have a deadline of the 30th, but we're not done yet. But we're working with the Assembly and the administration, and hopefully we'll be okay by, before June 30th. But we're going to pivot the very next day onto the next budget, because the budget cycle is normally 3 months. And it's going to be July, August, September. So we need to start doing budget hearings. We're looking to go back and voting in person on Monday. We're trying to figure that out right now to protect our most vulnerable members, but also to ensure that we get out there and start having committee hearings and doing all the things we did in the past, because we're in a real, all I can tell you is we're at a place that we've never been in the history of the state.
You mentioned the Assembly Speaker, you mentioned the governor as part of these talks. Who else is involved?
It's just basically the leadership. Our staffs are involved, Larry. Obviously, our professional staffs are all involved in working with it. We talk to our leadership teams in both houses when we're done, but we're getting close to getting to where we need to be on this one. Again, this is unprecedented times. I mean, we pushed the budget 3 months. I'm sorry we did. I really am at this point. I would have rather, we're the only state that wound up extending their budget, by 3 months. I would have rather dealt with it now. But either way, it was going to be tough. Numbers were going to be hard to figure out either way.
Do you see any way out of raising taxes at this point?
Taxes will be of the last resort. I don't. It's going to be depending on how deep we want to cut more than anything else, Larry.
But taxes have to be on the table. A raise in taxes have to be on the
Well,
table.
if there's going to be conversation on revenue raises, I mean, there will have to be. I mean, not that I'm jumping out and saying let's raise taxes, but there are taxes that we've done in the past, like the corporate business tax, that these are the corporations that made out under Trump, under the the SALT, whatever you want to call it, tax cuts. So again, there'll be discussions, but at this point, that's too early. That'll be part of the next discussion.
When we continue our conversation with Senate President Steve Sweeney, he talks about the job that Governor Murphy has done leading the state through this pandemic. That's when we come right back.